organisation. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Valuing Apprenticeships, and thank you for making the time to join us. It's very difficult, I know, in busy times to make that commitment. Today's webinar is a collaboration between NMIS Manufacturing Skills Academy, Skills Development Scotland, Scottish Trade Unions Council, and it's part of our Scottish Apprenticeship Week programme of support for the Apprenticeship Week. We have a strong panel with us today. We have Tommy Breslin, who is Senior Development Officer at Scottish Union Learning, Erin Bartley, Careers Advisor at Skills Development Scotland, Neil Archibald, who is Head of Workforce Strategic Planning at ScotRail, and we've managed to secure 2 apprentices to give us some insights into their career journey so far. We have Jane Nichol, who completed an apprenticeship with us here at NMIS AFRC, and Ross Pringle, who is a graduate apprentice at Leonardo. We've got some rules and regulations we need to stick to today. Let me go through the housekeeping slide. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel. Those of you who have joined the webinar will notice your microphones and webcams will be turned off during the session, purely to avoid background noise. You can type your questions through the session via the chat tool. Time will be allocated at the end of the speakers to answer those questions. Again, if time's on our side, we will maybe even try and go through using your hands up process to actually verbally ask some questions. And we'll be sending out a survey after this. We'd be pleased if you could take some time to complete that for us. So before we get to the substantive part of the event, I'd like to tell you a little bit about NMIS, the National Manufacturing Institute Scotland. It's effectively a group of industry-led manufacturing research and development facilities, and this is where we hope we can bring industry, public sector, academia together to transform, and transform's the key word there. We need to be transformational around skills, productivity and innovation, help us attract investment to Scotland and make it a global leader in advanced manufacturing. We want to do that because we want to catalyse job creation and strengthen supply chain links. We want to inspire and attract talent and equip the current and future workforces with the skills that they in business need. Stimulate investment, increase manufacturing competitiveness, and all of that across the manufacturing landscape. All the different sizes of businesses will hope to have a transformational effect with respect to jobs and quality of life in real terms. It is a national asset. Scottish Government, Scottish Enterprise, Skills Development Scotland, Renfrewshire Council, the Funding Council, all key partners in the development of NMIS, and it's operated by the University of Strathclyde, a One Scotland team approach. But where NMIS will have the biggest impact on learners and apprentices is the Manufacturing Skills Academy. We'll be looking to support employers to embrace net zero carbon and Industry 4.0, the digital transformation, and develop the new approaches that will need, and build on the strong provision we've got across our own Scottish institutions of schools and colleges and universities. We'll be looking to try and forecast skills gaps and skills shortages, and in the NMIS HQ building, we'll be looking to provide access to the latest equipment and training to help companies prepare for the future. And much as our HQ will be is in Renfrewshire, this is really a pan-Scotland project. And in real terms, as part of the theme today, we want to encourage young people to pursue career opportunities in manufacturing, showcasing that manufacturing is actually a clean and high-tech industry, and it's accessible to all people from all backgrounds. If you'd like to hear a bit more about NMIS, please get in touch offline. Moving on now to what we really want to talk about, which is the value of apprenticeships. They're highly valued within the skills landscape, particularly in manufacturing. There's no doubt they're essential to the nation's economic revival. It gives individuals the opportunity to work, learn and earn. Experience work-based learning, which is always a powerful way of learning how to do something, gives you accredited qualifications, and in real terms provides employers with the necessary skills that they need to succeed. It also encourages employers to value and develop a diverse talent pool. There's a huge amount of research around the importance of a diverse workforce with respect to being able to solve problems in a different manner, effectively and productively. However, we don't want you just to take our word on that, and the panel that we've assembled today will provide you with some evidence to why apprenticeships should be valued, and hopefully there'll be some key takeaways that you can bring from that. So at this point, I'd like to ask Tommy Breslin to set the scene a little bit more as to why we're here and why we value apprenticeships so much. So Tommy, if you would please.
Sure. Thanks, Jim, and thanks for organising this event this week as part of Scottish Apprenticeship Week. So as Jim said, my name's Tommy Breslin. I'm a Senior Development Officer. I work with Scottish Union Learning, which essentially is the kind of like the skills arm of the STUC, the Scottish Trade Unions Congress. And I support trade unions across Scotland to work across the Scottish apprenticeship family. So primarily that's really looking at modern apprenticeships and graduate apprenticeships, but we're starting to look a little bit more around foundation apprenticeships. I've been supporting unions to do this work for over a decade now, and working quite closely in partnership with multiple stakeholders, so trade federations, with Skills Development Scotland, with Scottish Government, with Engineering Skills Leadership Group. I'm a member of the Scottish Apprenticeship Advisory Board, Standards and Frameworks Group. I have a trade union seat there, and I also have a seat on the AG, and that's the Apprenticeship Approvals Group. So trade unions are involved in the governance of the apprenticeship programme here in Scotland, and we like to think, at the very least, we're able to support the shape and development of positive and powerful modern apprenticeships in Scotland. And we really feel that, to be honest, you know, a well-organised apprenticeship at an appropriate level in a good workplace, it's got fair work, and the dimensions that sit around fair work can be a powerful and positive start on a young person's career path. And we don't think that just kind of from an ideological perspective, but we think that through direct engagement with workplace union reps, you know, so the shop stewards, the stewards and the workplace health and safety reps, and so on. But we also engage quite closely with, on a regular basis, with young people, with young apprentices, and with young workers that were apprentices in the past, and starting to see how they're able to develop within their workplaces and progress and utilise the skills that they've been able to develop. You know, so I've interviewed many young apprentices and found that they're really quite keen as well to continue studying, but they're also very keen to get their hands on the tools, really. After school, they want to get their hands on their tools and start earning a wage, and they make a decision to study or have a contract for employment as an apprentice as being a step in that type of direction. So they don't just want surrounded by the books, they want the books, but they want their hands on the tools as well. And we've got to remember that an apprenticeship programme is a different model of learning. So it's different from university level learning in the way that you engage with it. It's more than just theory, it's practical based as well as degrees of theory. And I think that that's really quite interesting, but that's also very different from how young people learn in school as well. I'm sure you would agree. Many of those young people that I speak to do have the qualifications that would allow their entry directly to university, but they opt for the apprenticeship programmes, and there's a number of reasons for that. I've just kind of pulled 4 out. So for many, it can be the right level at which to start work. So that's the level of engagement. So that entry level skill that's not devalued, but is absolutely valued, and it can be valued for a number of different parties, obviously the governance, but also where we're talking about craft skills in particular, and we talk about trade federations there. We were talking about engineering. I know that the NMIS are particularly engaged around the manufacturing and engineering programs, and that's really important, that they're really quite valued skills there, and it's a great opportunity to bring young people into the workforce. It's a great opportunity for young workers to move into the workplace and start to develop those skills with the books, and sometimes they get day release to college, and sometimes the learning providers come into the workplace and provide that learning and support. But essentially, they want to get a trade or skill that is recognised and developed by industry. And when I mean industry, I don't just mean employers. I mean the learning and training providers that sit within industry. I mean the effective voice, so the trade unions that sit within industry, and also the employers. And then we also got to recognise that there are other parties that sit within that. So you've got the policy makers, for example, government policy makers, Skills Development Scotland, and so on are all key stakeholders. Many young people see apprenticeships as not being the destination, but the start and first step in their projected career paths. And they look to attend university very often at some point in the future. And that was a surprise for me. Often when we talk about lifelong learning and skills, we're talking about a fairly mature kind of group of young people, or yeah, perhaps still young, but going to university at a different stage, so not right out of school. They're adult returners, essentially, that move into university. But a lot of those young people, we look at some of the stats that Open University, for example, have, is that there's a decrease in the age profile of the demographic that are attending Open University, and it's quite telling there. So they don't want to totally give up with the books. They got the concepts and ideas around lifelong learning, but they want the skills as well to help them and support them in that journey. Being honest, some young people as well see family members having left school to study at university. They see that they've done really well at school. They've done well at university. They've maybe gained a degree. They've maybe gained a couple of degrees, the master's degree and so on. But then they've still found that they're themselves in entry-level jobs at the end of that, and very often burdened with debt. So they've taken those lessons, they've saw that experience of others within their immediate peer groups and family groups, and wanted to avoid those kind of pitfalls that we all know exist. In good workplaces, apprenticeships are not only valued by the apprentices and their families, but clearly by the employers. And many employers look at apprenticeships as being an investment in their workforce. So it's not just about a future investment, it's a current return on the investment they're making with those young workers. Immediately as soon as they're into the workplace, the employer starts to see a benefit of having those young workers, and it manifests itself in a number of different ways. And very often what we find is that those apprentices are subsequently ensured retained employment at the end of their programme. Okay, so the employer puts all that investment into them, and they want to keep them at the end of their apprenticeship programme. They don't want to lose them. And anecdotally, I'm told regularly, I'm told that apprentices subsequently often have greater loyalty to the company than graduates, and that this loyalty is often repaid through career progression and passing the skills on to the next generation. So where you've got good employers, they start to develop legacies of apprenticeships, and very often you're finding people moving through into managerial positions, decision-making positions that recognise their entry was through an apprenticeship programme. They take that throughout their journey within their workplace, within their careers. They make decisions and they help and support the growth and sustained apprenticeship programs within their workplaces. That's not an unusual conversation for me to have. Now, I would also say that actually valued apprenticeships within the workplace are also welcomed by the wider workforce, as they're seen as being really quite positive signs within the company. So rather than people being scared about jobs and so on, when they see a young workforce coming in, a structured intake of school leavers, actually there's a wider benefit there to the company. It creates a bit of a buzz, a positive idea, a positive attitude amongst the wider workforce. It's hard to measure that, but again, anecdotally, these are not unusual conversations I'm having with union reps, with employers and others involved in the whole skills agenda. And part of that can help make it a more welcoming workplace. So that entry for young workers, it can be quite a challenging environment moving out of school into work, but where it's welcomed by others within the workplace, it can help that transition pretty strongly, I would say, really. I think also sometimes young other workers look and say, well, actually, if they're bringing in young people, that could be my son or my daughter, my niece or my nephew, or somebody else that's kind of related somehow to the family that could be taking that opportunity. So yeah, it's got a pretty wide and positive impact in that regard. So I work closely with trade unions right across Scotland and right across the apprenticeship agenda. And many work closely with employers to support apprentices on a more holistic basis through organising additional learning opportunities. And I'm aware that RMT and ScotRail are here as well, and some of those examples would be around like financial capability. So young people who have a bit of money on their hip, the union's there to support them. An employer working closely with the employer, the union can be there to support them to think about, not going out and spending it in a big fancy pair of trainers or whatever else. It's about thinking about their future and their kind of financial capability and planning in that respect. And you can see they're starting to build up and develop skills that are also not only going to be used in their personal lives, but skills that can be utilised again within their workplaces as they start to think about progression within their workplace, think beyond their immediate apprenticeship programme. And we also support unions in developing programmes around equality and diversity within the workplace. These are really quite important. And career planning. So already at a young age, starting to think about where do you want to be in a few years' time, in 5 years' time? How do you start to think about getting there? And surprisingly or not, we also work with unions to develop and organise mentoring programmes. So again, this benefit to the wider workforce, when those workers are seeing that young apprentices coming in, there's actually a role for them to play. And that may not be the person that's guiding them in terms of the hands-on the tools type of expertise, but they've got maybe the appropriate people that have got a more holistic approach and look at the young person and their engagement within that workplace. So we're developing mentoring programmes there to support the wider workforce and helping apprentices within their workplaces. And if you think about that idea about having your hands on the tools, so to speak, and be surrounded by books, I think it's something that's perhaps not too distant from some of the models that a lot of teachers will recognise, whereby you're going to university, but you're also on placement within school. The difference being that you get remunerated when you're on apprenticeship because it's a job, you get a contract of employment and so on and so forth. So perhaps it's more akin to your probationary year. And then when your time served, of course, you get your sustained employment at the end of that. That's a really, really important factor. And we can see that when you get the sign-ups to the GTCS, for example, and the kind of, creating something that's akin to a teacher training programme there, or thinking it in that concept. And one of the challenges, to be honest, because it's not just important to talk about the good side of apprenticeships, but we also got to look at some of the challenges. And one of the things that we've got as a challenge is a parity of esteem with university level education. That's something that we're keen to challenge, because it's given the experience that we're talking about here, where it's a valued apprenticeship programme in an organised workplace. The employer's got respect, it's got fair work dimensions and so on and so forth within the workplace. It's just as good, every bit as good as a university programme. I don't want to push down in university education at all. I think it's really important. But apprenticeships are just as important as university education. And then that kind of naturally takes us on to the levelling of apprenticeships. So where we've got kind of like SEQF level 6 apprenticeships, for example, we can start to think and see, well, what are we getting in some of the policy arenas? And there's a greater push and increase around graduate apprenticeships. So that is apprenticeships where the young people can come out with a university level programme, and very often a degree, so sitting there at SEQF level 10. That's really important, and I think there's a real growth in that type of area. For policymakers, some of the challenges might be around the funding of that programme, but nonetheless, those pathways that can be developed are really quite important. So I think the future for apprenticeships, if we get it right, can be really, really quite interesting. It's also, I'd say, a cornerstone of youth employment in Scotland. And I'm going to talk about pre-pandemic numbers rather than actually pandemic numbers. So the Scottish Government had a policy goal to increase apprenticeship starts in a financial year up to 30,000, and I believe they were able to achieve that goal. So if you think of that, it's a significant structured intake of young people into workplaces across Scotland is going to be through an apprenticeship programme. And what trade unions have got to do is ensure that those are of a high enough level, are an appropriate level, and that they're in workplaces that have implement the fair work dimensions and so on and so forth. That it's a real good step and a powerful step into the workplace for those young workers, and it's about sustained employment. Jim, I'm happy to hand back to you before the kids come running up the stairs as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Tommy. That was an excellent and comprehensive overview of the scene. I think the term parity of esteem is something we'll hear a bit more about as today goes on, because I think that's very important. Erin, if I can hand over to you now as the National Skills Agency, Skills Development Scotland, and obviously you can say they've got more than a keen interest in the apprenticeship programmes. So I'll hand over to you now.
No problem. Hi there. Yeah, I'm one of the careers advisors with Skills Development Scotland. My name's Erin Bartley, and I'm actually based in schools. So my job is speaking to the young people that you were just mentioning there, Tommy. And I'm one of the people who kind of gets them through that career journey and helps them to decide what it is they want to do and gives them that advice and guidance on apprenticeships for the future. So what I'm tasked with today is just to go through some of the differences in apprenticeships and really give you that overview of the different types of apprenticeships. You heard Tommy there mentioning things like foundation, modern and graduate apprenticeships. And I think there has been a lot of change in the past couple of years, and it would probably be quite useful to discuss what the differences between the apprenticeships and our apprenticeship family are. So as I said, foundation apprenticeships, modern apprenticeships and graduate apprenticeships. I'm going to go through each of those in detail. But today there are apprenticeships available in more industry sectors than ever before, all based on the skills that employers want. There are around 43,000 people in apprenticeships and work-based learning at present. So foundation apprenticeships are probably quite new to a lot of people. They have been developed by Skills Development Scotland with industry to provide school pupils with industry insight and experience whilst gaining a work-based learning qualification, and it introduces them to the world of work earlier. So foundation apprenticeships are based in the school sector. They're a vocational choice for our young people at school. So to tell you a little bit more about foundation apprenticeships, they are an option that pupils can take in S5 or 6, and they're offered in 32 local authorities at the moment. It helps young people to develop industry knowledge and experience, take part in industry projects and placements virtually or in person. The great thing about a foundation apprenticeship is it gives young people that real taster into what an apprenticeship is like, and they do get a work-based qualification at SCQF level 6, which is the same level, as I'm sure most of you know, as a higher. We do also have pilot programmes that are operating in some areas in Scotland, offering SCQF level 4 and 5 qualifications, which is allowing us to open up this foundation apprenticeship to more pupils. So it's from S3 to S6, and hopefully we can roll that out across the country to be offering more of these taster opportunities to our young people. So how does it work? A foundation apprenticeship is delivered in partnership by learning providers and employers. Knowledge gained is supported through a series of practical activities, including industry project-based activity and work placements. As I say, those are undertaken virtually and in person, so hopefully are COVID-proof for the future. A foundation apprenticeship can take up to 2 years. We do also have a year-long model available. It usually starts for our S5 pupils. As I say, it's a school choice, so it takes up one of their subject choices, or in some instances two in their subject choices. It allows them to spend time with a learning provider and with an employer, so really is preparing them for that world of work and helps to prepare them for an apprenticeship should that be their chosen destination in the future. So what subjects does a foundation apprenticeship cover? As you can see from the slide, there's a wide range. There's 12 types of foundation apprenticeship to choose from in a wide range of subjects from accountancy to software development. And as we said, these are areas where there are growth and there will be jobs in the future. The pilot SCQF level 4 and 5 foundation apprenticeship that we mentioned is running just now in construction, automotive and hospitality sectors, and hopefully again will be opened out to some of these other subjects that you can see here. So what are the benefits of a foundation apprenticeship? Well, as we said, there's industry knowledge, skills and experience, a chance to gain industry recognised qualification, and it really helps young people to know about apprenticeships and to move on to a modern apprenticeship or graduate apprenticeship in the future. Lots of current apprenticeships are advertising that they do really value that foundation apprenticeship and see that as part of the entry criteria. It can enhance CV, job applications and personal statements. They're gaining a qualification recognised by colleges, universities and, as I say, apprenticeship providers, and it helps them to build confidence, and they're developing some of their meta skills like creativity, problem solving and communication, which is essential for the future to help them to navigate the world of work. So next on our list is modern apprenticeship, and I think this is probably the one that most people are familiar with. This is our more traditional format, which offers a blend of academic learning and practical experience. The benefits of a modern apprenticeship is it's a real job with a real employer, and many of Scotland's biggest and best industries are involved. There's around 12,000 companies that currently offer modern apprenticeships, and as well as national companies, small to medium-sized businesses, as well as family firms also offer apprenticeship schemes. There are a massive range of apprenticeships available depending on what you want to do. Everything from construction, design, engineering and life sciences to data analytics, horticulture and more. There's over 80 different types of apprenticeships. And interestingly, last year, over 10,400 women started a modern apprenticeship. I think that's quite a key fact on International Women's Day. And it's something that we're very proactive about, is bashing that myth that apprenticeships are just for boys. So that shows you that we do have a good amount of female candidates, and hopefully we'll be offering that to more over the coming years. So different apprenticeships take different lengths of time to complete, and for the modern apprenticeship, some can take up to 4 years. So modern apprenticeships are jobs with structured training, so you'll be earning while you learn. Employers pay the wages of an STS contribute towards the cost of training. The UK government sets the national minimum wage for apprenticeship, but many employers pay above this. And the real benefit is that opportunity to earn while you learn. So like you were saying, Tommy, it's given the best of both worlds to some of our young people. They do want to learn more. They also want to earn a wage, and they want to be doing some practical things to help them to really get their teeth into employment and the structure of what they're involved in. So gaining skills and hands-on experience, as I say, is what is so pivotal with a modern apprentice, and it's what young people are really looking for, particularly those who are real practical learners. And it's worth bearing in mind that anyone aged over 16 can become a modern apprentice, and from the first day they'll have a real job with a real employer that earns real pay. It helps them to gain skills, gain hands-on experience that employers value, and it helps them to work towards an industry recognised qualification. So we've surveyed apprentices, and these are the main reasons why they say they started their apprenticeships. Improved prospects, gaining a qualification, building confidence, and gives you a job with training, as well as in learning important new skills. 91% of apprentices are still in employment 6 months after completing their modern apprenticeship, and 96% of employers say former apprentices are better equipped to do their jobs. So completing a modern apprenticeship opens up a world of opportunities, enabling apprentices to progress their career, get a head start on a graduate apprenticeship if they want to continue their learning, and complete further learning in a wide range of different opportunities, which is again why we've got careers advisors to help steer young people towards the goal that they want and to help them to find the opportunity that's right for them. So what is a graduate apprenticeship? That's the next one in our list of different apprenticeships. So as Tommy explained, a graduate apprenticeship is for people who want to get qualified to a university level. Again, it's for people aged over 16, and it's a new way for individuals to gain qualifications through work. The main thing about a graduate apprenticeship is it allows you to achieve a nationally recognised and accredited degree, gain transferable skills required by employers and industry, and be in paid employment. Currently, we've got 15 universities and 1 college who are established as graduate apprenticeship providers. So it's given young people another choice of apprenticeship at a higher level, allowing them to gain those university qualifications that they're looking for. Graduate apprenticeships have not only been designed to benefit industry, but they've been designed with the apprentices' development in mind. graduate apprenticeships allow for people to fulfil their career aspirations, to learn from real work experience and to obtain a sense of achievement. It's a new way to gain qualifications through work and get paid. It allows you to achieve up to a master's degree level, and it allows you to spend time during your working week with a leading university or college. So what subjects does it cover? Right now, there are 13 different types on offer, all within growing sectors and with great career prospects. And as you can see, anything from accounting to IT software development. So lots and lots of choice there, and hopefully these are areas that will grow in the future. There's a range of qualification levels that these graduate apprenticeships can cover. So some can be an SCQF level 8 and others can be up to an SCQF level 10. So how does it work? So as a graduate apprentice, you'll be paid employment, while gaining qualifications, and apprentices are actual employees and they'll spend around 80% of their time with their employer. It's a very flexible programme, so you will have a personalised learning plan, and the integration of work and learning counts towards the qualification, meaning that attendance at university can be flexible and based on the employer's requirements. Completion time of a graduate apprenticeship can take up to 5 years, depending on the level of qualification undertaken. So there are many benefits to a graduate apprenticeship, mainly getting qualified up to a master's degree level, so that higher level of qualification than the modern apprentice. Gaining skills, get earning, easy to access, and it is really focused on those growth industries, which should lead to increased employment opportunities at the end of that programme. There are lots of different options, and for graduate apprenticeships, once they finish, they can progress on to other levels of the graduate apprenticeship, so perhaps take that learning up to the SCQF level 10. They can continue further university or college learning and undertake further on-the-job training. So as you were saying earlier, Tommy, a lot of young people do want to learn and get lots of opportunities. So the graduate apprenticeship, it's not just a destination, it can be a pathway onto other opportunities to allow young people to achieve what they're capable of. So how do you find the right apprenticeship for you? And that is really where we come in as Skills Development Scotland. We would always advise young people to speak to their careers advisors like me who are based in school, to help young people with those decisions before they leave, to help them to understand more about foundation apprentices, but also to speak to some of our careers advisors in the high street once they're post-school, and they can get lots of advice about the next stages and to help them to navigate the different apprenticeships that are out there and choose the pathway that is correct for them. Apprenticeship.scot is our website that gives lots and lots of information on the different types of apprenticeships. So if you want a little bit more information, more in-depth information about some of the apprenticeships out there, then that's definitely the right place to go. And just for me to say thank you very much and to pass back to you, Jim.
I think for me to say to you, thank you very much as well, Erin. That was fantastic. I think you used the phrase "world of opportunity," and I think that came across quite clearly. Excuse me, Neil, industry perspective, please.
Thanks very much, Jim, and I appreciate the opportunity to come along this afternoon. I very much echo everything that Tommy and Erin and others have said this afternoon. As a large national employer, we get a lot from taking on apprentices every year. So I'll give you a very quick whistle-stop tour about ScotRail and then why I think apprentices are important for us. So we're a national employer, over 5,000 employees, but politely we're old, male and fail. So as an industry, it's an ageing workforce. We've got a massive amount of resource and experience that's going to retire over the next 5 and 10 years. And we're now taking steps to actively try and address that and plan for the future. So we operate over 2,000 services every day, and pre-pandemic, in a typical year, we would have 100 million passenger journeys. Clearly, COVID's hit us, as it has most companies, so life is looking very different for us, but we've now got a great opportunity to try and address the future workforce challenges that we have. We take on apprentices because we see it's a great way of upskilling our current colleagues, It's a great way of attracting more diversity and bringing young people to an industry that's often not seen as the most attractive one when folk are going through schools and colleges and universities. It's helping us very much prepare for the future. It's allowing us to do some succession planning, and I would like to echo the comment that if you invest in an apprentice, they will invest in you. And we've got a really successful track record of having young people who've come in as apprentices 10, 15 years ago, moving on to a wide variety of roles within the company and really showing that commitment to us. So they move on to areas like HR. We've got apprentices in our social media and comms teams. We've got apprentices who are now train drivers, and they've moved on to a number of different roles and moved into management as well. As a supporter of the Young Person's Guarantee, I think it's important as a national employer to really try and invest in young people and offer out those opportunities. And we've found that apprentices are often motivated and really receptive to change. They've helped us change the culture in certain parts of the business as well by bringing fresh ideas and fresh perspectives. Hugely powerful for us, and I think it was Tommy that had said that the view amongst your existing colleagues when you bring in apprentices can be hugely positive and very supportive as well, and it helps motivate particular teams if you're bringing in fresh thinking and fresh blood. That point, yeah, as I said about committing to us as an employer, I think is hugely important. And we've actually managed to get a lot of success in the last couple of years with the business to take an apprenticeship first model when it comes to routinely filling vacancies. So instead of always just going to the market and bringing in the same kind of person we've always had in our workforce, by deploying an apprenticeship first model, it's made the business think differently about how it can set up teams and structures and where it wants to invest. And last year, just coming out of the COVID lockdowns, was our busiest year in terms of intakes of apprentices, and we took on 16. Including in a new area of business and procurement, which is one we'd never really touched before. And that shows that that kind of apprenticeship first model can work in most situations. Plans during 2022 to really increase that in our customer service roles. We're moving to some new modern apprenticeships in our service planning department as well. So really going to kind of continue to push that apprenticeship first model and really see it as a hugely important part of what we want to be doing as an employer and who we want to be as an employer as well. It's not, whilst there is funding available to help with training costs and stuff like that, that's not the motivation. It's not about trying to get some income to help with that. It's about providing really good opportunities for young people across the country, and the support you get back and the commitment you get back from young people is hugely critical for us. Just touching on the levels of apprenticeships, I think it's worth talking about the SCQF inclusive recruiter piece. And that point that Tommy was talking about, that anybody going through an apprenticeship will get loads of lifelong skills as well as the academic qualification piece. And by taking an inclusive look at your recruitment, it's easier then to show how that maps against the old ways of you need a graduate with X degree, these kind of things. By taking an inclusive recruiting approach, it shows that apprenticeships and lifelong learning and all of that kind of stuff are equally as valuable. And we're encouraging not just ourselves as a company, but other companies to consider moving away from you need a graduate with X amount of experience to talking more about SCQF levels and where they all sit and fit. And it's easier for people to see where their backgrounds and their experience sit against all of that. So I think, Jim, just I was a rattle through from us, but it's a hugely important part of what we want to do as a business. Get a lot of value by bringing young people into ScotRail. We want to do more, and it does help us really create and design our future workforce. That'd be me.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks for that. I think it's always vitally important that we understand the employer's thoughts and views around this. We need to get the demand side correct. But fantastic story about the support from ScotRail for the apprenticeship programmes. We've got an opportunity now to talk to or listen to two apprentices coming up. First off, I'm going to ask Jane to give us the story of her career journey thus far and the part her apprenticeship played within that. Over to you, Jane.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, so I'm currently run the lab for residual stress in AFRC after starting my apprenticeship in the centre over 8 years ago. So when I was in school, I was adamant that I was going to stay on until 6th year. I was going to get a degree, I was going to stay on, I was going to get a master's, and then that's how my career was going to run until it got to 5th year when it came to actually looking at degrees. I knew I wanted to do engineering just based off my subjects that I was good at and that I enjoyed, but I found there were so many degrees that was a different type of engineering that I just couldn't decipher what the difference was between them and what they realistically meant as a career. So it was only at that point then that my eyes were opened up to the kind of opportunities that apprenticeships pose to people. So I took a leap of faith and left school after 5th year. Just decided that it was no longer for me the worrying about, will I spend 4 years on a degree, start a job in it and realise I didn't enjoy it, it wasn't what I imagined it would be. Instead I thought, regardless, I've started an apprenticeship, and not only am I gaining a really good qualification through it, I'll have the opportunity to gain really valuable skills, and I'll always be earning money over that period of time. So to me, at that point, it seemed like a no-brainer, regardless of whether after 4 years I enjoyed it or not. I had earned money, I was in a really good situation, and I have just got really fortunate that I've loved my job. So I took an apprenticeship in mechanical manufacturing engineering in the workshop in AFRC. So a lot of the stuff that I was doing was based around like machining, so milling and turning, electric discharge machining as well. It was massively varied, both in the different types of machinings I was operating and the scale of the work. So I would be dealing with really small samples and then really large project work. So I was in the workshop for 4 years, and then I decided I would kind of change it up a little bit. I wanted to broaden my skill set and see what else I could do. So I moved into the residual stress lab in the AFRC. I didn't really have any idea what residual stress was at this point, other than knowing it was another department in the centre. I didn't understand the fundamentals of anything for it, but the skills that I had been able to gain through the apprenticeship in machining and in the workshop were still massively beneficial, and in something that on paper seems like a totally different kind of direction to be taking things. Everything about thinking like logically about programming, planning, setting up parts, it's all really beneficial in different areas that you maybe wouldn't always think. So yeah, in 2018 was when I moved into the lab, and I've just sort of worked up to now start running the place. When I was midway through my apprenticeship, so we got a HNC as part of the apprenticeship, just through the natural progression of it. But that sort of nagging bit from when I was younger that had always been like, you kind of want the degree just maybe for the safety in the future, it just sort of started coming back a little bit. So I spoke to my work and started looking into what courses were available for me to further my skills academically as well, but with zero intention of leaving my job to do it. So I actually started a degree part-time with Glasgow Cali in computer-aided mechanical engineering, and I completed that in 2020. But I think from doing that, I realised I had definitely made the right decision leaving school, because that wouldn't have been the degree that I had chosen to do. I wanted to do aerospace engineering. I don't know why. It just was the one that stuck out to me in school. I would have never did this computer-aided one, and I really did enjoy it. And I've now got that honours degree. And since then, I've started on my master's. So I'm doing an MSc just now, part-time, while still working. So theoretically, if I compare myself to everybody else that I went to school with, if I graduate this year with this degree, I'll be maybe a year behind everybody who stayed on till 6 years, started a degree and kind of worked that way. But I've earned a wage for like 8 years on side of that. And just to me, that seems like the best opportunity to have had. Like, yes, it took an extra 2 years compared to others, but 2 years is nothing compared to 8 years of earning. So yeah, and when I look at it, I'm really grateful to have the degree, and it's a great thing to have. But if I look at the skills I use in my job and the knowledge that I have, most of it has come from the apprenticeship. how I do my job, the skills I've gained, how I interact with people on a professional basis as well, not just the kind of direct people that I'm working with, is all skills that I've developed through my apprenticeship. That's what's helped build my confidence in like presenting and dealing with people, just confidence in myself and my own abilities. So yeah, having an ideal position to compare between an apprenticeship and a degree, I think leaving school down the apprenticeship route is always the way I would have taken it. The security it gave you for your future and just for what you were earning at that point in time was second to none. And if anything's kind of taught me anything, if I had left school and taken a degree and did a master's, I would have really likely graduated straight into the pandemic that nobody would have ever known could have happened, and then struggled with finding jobs and things like that. Whereas I had the security from the outset. I was never made to feel like my apprenticeship might not continue, or my job might not continue once I finished and got my papers. There was always a natural progression. And as has been said by others, it genuinely does feel appreciated by your employer that they know that you've put the work in, that you've genuinely built the skills from the bottom up. And it means you actually know a massive range of the company because you have had to learn from the bottom. You know stuff that people who've come straight in, maybe at the middle, they don't all know, they don't understand, they've not experienced how it worked. So yeah, I don't know if I've covered everything, but feel free to pop any questions in the chat or that if you've got any for me. But I'll hand back over to Jim.
Thank you, Jane. That was a fantastic story, and I think it really highlighted the benefit of that apprenticeship platform to move off from. Fantastic. Ross, tell us about your graduate apprenticeship experiences at Leonardo.
Hi everyone, so my name is Ross Pringle. I'm currently in the third year of my 4-year graduate apprenticeship at Leonardo. So Leonardo is a defence company and aerospace company just based in Edinburgh. So kind of a bit similar to Jane. So going through school, I was really adamant on going to university. I did stay on for the full 6 years, and it was through that kind of final year of school when I was starting to apply for universities and things like that, that we go to the open days. And I was always set on doing mechanical engineering. So going to the open days and then watching the lecturers give the overview. And I remember there was at one of the universities, they had a slide pack on, and they had a big picture of an engine that was stripped. And the big thing was, you know, as a mechanical engineer, you'll never be touching anything like this. And then they went in the next slide, and it was all about maths and equations and things like that. So immediately it kind of put a bit of a dampener on, you know, university life for me, because I found through school, you know, I found that subjects like engineering, where you did have a bit of hands-on learning, such as using things like pneumatics and then building small circuits, that I did go on and, you know, was a bit better at the exam because I knew how to do it because I had actually done it before. So I kind of then tailored my 6th year to more focus on getting things like work experience. So I did 3 lots of work experience in my 6th year at kind of engineering companies. So I think at ScotRail, Network Rail and BAE Systems, each kind of focused on a different part of engineering. So I think at Network Rail it was to do with project planning, and then another one was to do with the actual manufacturing of parts, and then the other one was to do with, you know, maintaining that product afterwards. So it really geared me up on a kind of industry understanding of how actually engineering works in the real world. And it was through those different kind of placements I was talking to all the folk that worked there, and found out that they do all kind of offer apprenticeship opportunities. But at that time they were at modern level apprenticeships. And you know, speaking to my family and stuff, I was still set on going to university and getting that degree because my goal was to always become a chartered engineer. And I knew that to become a chartered engineer, you had to go to university, and now you have to go and get a master's if you want to make it easier for yourself. So that kind of, you know, it led me down the route of, you know, a modern apprenticeship could be right for me because it would, you know, I would maybe find I would climb the ladder a bit quicker because I was excelling at what I was doing. But it was through this kind of search that I stumbled across the graduate apprenticeships. And I applied for my apprenticeship in 2019. So, well, I think it was actually the tail end of 2018. So at that time, graduate apprenticeships were kind of just surfacing. And then I stumbled across Leonardo, and Leonardo were in their 2nd year of offering graduate apprenticeships. So I jumped at that opportunity. And it was the advertised job was a design engineering graduate apprentice. and that was great because it was like an umbrella term for, you know, every kind of engineering discipline that was involved in the actual manufacturing of a product. So I applied for that position and I was fortunate enough to go for it. The kind of one of the main reasons I picked that apprenticeship as well is the thing when it comes to, you know, you're getting paid a lot of money to do an apprenticeship versus you're paying a lot of money to go and do a degree, that you'll come out of that degree with the same qualification as everyone else that did that degree, and then you're battling for the same jobs as everyone else. And, you know, looking at COVID now, with everyone not really being able to get their work experience and, you know, internships through COVID, it would be even harder now than it probably would have been when I, you know, was initially thinking about it. So the great thing about my apprenticeship format is the first 2 years you spend rotating around the business. We were doing 4-month placements and things like, so I always wanted to do mechanical engineering, but mechanical engineering was my final placement. So before that, I was doing things like hardware engineering, test engineering, systems, as well as the kind of support and operations that come with that, like quality assurance and supportability. And that really helped to, again, you know, create the foundations for my understanding, so that when I finally went into mechanical engineering, it meant that I had a great understanding of everything that comes around that, and, you know, who I need to talk to, and why me doing something in a certain way is important for the next person. And then in third year, I've now specialised in mechanical engineering. And the thing I find quite funny about that now is we take on graduates as well. And I now think I'm sitting just about at the same level as the new graduates that come in, and they're about 3 years older than me now. So again, you start to see that kind of professional development having its advantages as well, which I think is a great thing. So yeah, so again, planning on staying on obviously with the company after that. I am hoping to perhaps do a master's degree. So one of the, you know, concerns I had with my degree was that it was a 4-year BEng honours degree, and to get you know, a chartered engineer, they do suggest that it's better for you to have a master's degree, as well as within our company there's certain if you get a chartership, then you can progress up the ladder, be a senior engineer up to, you know, principal and things like that. So a master's degree is quite appealing to me. However, because graduate apprenticeships are so new, it's still too early to tell yet that, you know, is it better that you've done a graduate apprenticeship versus, you know, staying on and doing university. But time will tell, but it's definitely looking very positive for that. So yeah, I would definitely recommend apprenticeships to anyone that's really looking for that hands-on learning approach. It's definitely found, to me, very, very beneficial as well. As well as my brother, he just recently started an apprenticeship down with the Formula 1 team as well. So he was in the same boat as me. Do you want to do uni or get hands-on work? And then, you know, so it's definitely brilliant. But hope I've covered everything everyone was wanting. And you know, as Jim was saying, if you've got any questions, then feel free to post them in. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Brilliant. I think we'd all agree that everybody's been listening. There are 2 fantastic stories of how you articulate your career. Absolutely brilliant. Just before we move on to the Q&A part of the webinar, I do know I've got Pauline McColgan on the call this afternoon. I just wanted to get Pauline's perspective on what she's heard thus far.
Jim, thanks very much, and Jane and Ross, thank you so much for sharing your stories. And I think you've shown, just even by being here today, the whole life skills that you've earned through your apprenticeships and through your learning journeys. Being able to reflect on your career so far and present it so articulately shows the whole life skills that you've been learning alongside the academic skills, alongside the workplace knowledge. Jane, you mentioned confidence, you mentioned security. You've got these in spades now that you can carry throughout life. And Ross, you mentioned that important skill of being a mentor. You don't always know that you are a mentor, but you offer that opportunity to show people a different path, if that's the way they want to go. Jim, that was just to add a couple of points, and just to say thank you very much as well for the opportunity to be part of this webinar, and the information will be available on the EIS website as well as on NMIS. Thank you.
Thanks, Pauline. Yeah, I can't see any questions in the conversation box. I don't think. Felicity, I don't know if we've got. I've got a hand up. Robert, can we unmute Robert? No.
Robert, you should be able to speak now, I think, if you unmute yourself.
I think that's it, yeah. Robert Flood from Knox Academy in Harrington and East Lothian. Just a quick question about the graduate apprenticeships. My experience of graduate apprenticeships is that there aren't that many of them. And then you get somebody in and they say they've got 2 for the whole of Scotland. What is the proportion of graduate apprenticeships compared to these companies taking on university graduates? And is that likely to change, do you think, in the future? Will there be a more even split if that's the case?
I think that sounds like one for Erin, possibly. I do know from my own experience working with DYW and in other arenas that, yeah, it's challenging getting funding from Scottish Government to provide the required levels of graduate apprenticeships. It's a very popular product, for want of a better term. But that's interesting feedback. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Erin.
As a lowly careers advisor, I don't have those statistics. I do know that they are, as we said, quite new programmes, and hopefully that is going to grow over the next coming years. But skillsdevelopmentscotland.com might have some statistics on that, or apprenticeships.scot. Sorry, I don't have stats for you though.
No, thanks, Erin. It was just given it was in that realm. The specifics, Robert, we'll try and get back to you with.
Because I think for young people that it's such an attractive thing because there's no debt involved, and going to university now involves quite leaving university with a fair amount of debt. So a graduate apprenticeship to me is potentially a great thing, and I just wonder if companies are buying into it and changing their models in terms of how they recruit.
Can I just jump in on that? Because through Leonardo, I have noticed that when I joined, we offered 2 different graduate apprenticeships. So we offered the design engineering graduate apprenticeship and a software development graduate apprenticeship as well. I think at the time we were taking on 2 software and 6 design GAs, and I think now this year it's up to 16 design GAs, and I think up to maybe 5 software GAs. I don't know if I've got those numbers correctly, but it is definitely within that margin, as well as opening up 2 different graduate apprenticeship roles as well. So it's definitely, from a Leonardo perspective, it's been identified that GAs are way more valuable to the business than potentially someone that's going to university and coming from that sense. But again, because of this whole imbalance with, you've got people that are at retirement age, and then you've got a huge gap in the middle when it goes to early careers. I think they're both ramping up on both apprenticeship recruitment as well as graduate recruitment as well. So I've definitely seen an increase in the amount of interest in the companies, need to bring in graduate apprentices.
Thanks, Ross. I've got a couple of hands up. I've got Tommy and Neil, and I think first was Mick, possibly.
Do you want me to go ahead, Jim, now?
Mick, yeah, if you don't mind, Jim.
Okay, Jim, 2 questions. The first question for yourself, Jim, or maybe Erin, and the second question for Neil. The first question is trade union participation. How important is trade union participation in terms of apprenticeships, whether it be foundation, modern, or graduate? And the second question for Neil, I know, like say, Ability ScotRail within a railway have actually got a franchise commitment to actually employ 100 apprenticeships throughout the lifetime of the franchise. But the franchise is coming to an end, as colleagues are probably aware. Obviously, we want to see an increase in the apprenticeships, and the demographics that Neil touched on earlier in his contribution is very, very clear, because we've got a lot of older colleagues within the railway, and that needs to be addressed. So my question to Neil is it an option for us to actually explore the foundation side, the modernate side, and the graduate side, a combination of three? Because I'm assuming, Neil, that all we've actually done so far is go down the modern apprenticeship route only.
Okay, so I'll touch on the start of that question, Mick. I think Tommy Breslin obviously sits in engineering skills leadership groups, apprentice advisory groups, etc. So I think the trade union has a massive influence around the apprenticeship programmes. The second question, I'm more than delighted to hand over to Neil.
You want me to go first, Jim?
Yep, on you go.
Okay. So yeah, Mick, very much wanting to do work in all three of those areas. We've had a go at foundation apprenticeships pre-pandemic with a lot of success and a lot of positive destinations for the young people that went through it. We are well versed in modern apprenticeships, and I think we're delivering good programmes, although desperately trying to do more. In terms of graduate apprenticeships, we've got 3 at the moment, and I put my hand up to kind of come back to Robert's point. I think that's just our level of maturity in that space and our understanding about how it can sit and fit with what we're doing just now. The 3 that we actually have in it at the moment, we're actually using GAs to upskill existing colleagues, so they are released a day a week to work towards their qualification. All 3 working with Heriot Watt at the moment, but we're actually now designing the sort of future roles to recruit graduate apprenticeships, if you will, so to bring young people in the same way that Ross has done it into the business and desperately trying to do more. So we'll have the foundation apprenticeship model hopefully in play for next academic year, so it'll be available for young people to choose. We tried it in IT and accountancy in 2019 and it went really well, with sort of 9 young individuals that wanted to do more and really build up a presence in each of the local authority areas if we can do that. But definitely keen to do more on all 3 areas of that. And I think, Robert, just to touch on the GA point, as an employer, I think it's a fantastic programme. I think it's a great opportunity for us, clearly a great opportunity for the young people. I just think the uptake is maybe just a little bit behind the curve, and just it's knowledge and a maturity thing amongst employers of that. I think everybody understands modern apprenticeships really well. And we're just finding our feet with GAs. I think you'll see it take off over the next couple of years. There's some really good stories there already. There'll be more providers, I'm sure. Erin might correct me if I'm wrong, but there'll probably be more providers and more offerings as time goes on as well. And it's just our own knowledge and understanding. I've tried to answer 2 things in one there, Jim. Hopefully, Mick, that covers what you were asking as well.
Thanks, Neil. I'm conscious of time. We've kind of run over. I've got one hand left up, and that's Tommy Breslin. Tommy, if you want to.
Thanks, Jim. I'll be as succinct as I can be. I think that Robert's question in relation to graduate apprenticeships and the point he was making there was really encouraging. I think there is great scope for potential development in that area, and it would be good, and it's again encouraging to hear from Neil, and that employers should be looking at that, and similarly Ross's points are around the graduate apprenticeship programme at Leonardo. I think there's real scope and real potential there. I think the challenge very often will come from the funding side. So where the Scottish Government put that funding, who do they put that funding to? How much is a contribution that comes from the state, and how much is a contribution that's got to come from the employers as well? So I think there's a lot of big questions there, but I think the potential for that, it could really sell itself, I think, actually, and then I would pick up on Mick's point in relation to trade union engagement. I would say trade union engagement across the apprenticeship family is absolutely essential, and as you're aware, we are engaged at a governance level, and we do support trade unions in working with employers and other skills agencies and leadership groups across the apprenticeship family. And we do have to ensure that the trade union voice, the staff side voice, is listened to. It's important that we listen to employers, absolutely. I'm not going to dismiss that. It's important that we listen to training providers. It's important that we listen to the leadership groups, and we've got to have a real democratic and powerful process, and there's no way that can go ahead without the trade union voice.
Thanks, Tommy. I've got one more hand up from Jane.
Sorry, it was just to jump in on what Tommy was saying about if funding is an issue. It's probably more applicable to the modern apprentices, but if anybody has an apprentice that does want to go to university but they can't get the funding for it or they're struggling to afford it, there is a Whitworth scholarship that exists. So it's the Whitworth Society and IMechE, and it's basically a fund to help apprentices fund their degree. So it can go towards tuition or travel or books or things like that. And not only do you obviously get that help and support, the apprentice will then become a Whitworth scholar when they're once they've graduated with their degree as well. So it's just another way if MD is looking to try and encourage any modern apprentices to move into a degree, there is that funding avenue that exists, and it's also a prestigious award for the apprentice as well as funded. Yeah.
Brilliant, Jane. Thanks for that. I think, Mick, you're on mute, Mick, I think.
Just a question. I don't know if you have the answer or Erin has the answer. Obviously, from a railway perspective, we want to see as many apprenticeships as possible. Now, I also deal with the Circle Caledonian Sleeper, and along with my colleague Dennis Fallon, obviously we engage with the Circle Caledonian Sleeper quite a lot. Now, what Circle Caledonian Sleeper have actually told us, because they work predominantly as a night shift, they're actually prevented from actually recruiting any apprenticeships because they're night shift and you need to be a certain age before you can actually encourage apprenticeships to be employed by Circle Caledonian Sleeper. Now, is that the case? Because I'm really concerned about that, and if it is the case, then I would like to do something about it, perhaps through engagement with Transport Scotland and the Transport Secretary, because I don't think age should be any barrier to apprenticeships.
I probably don't have the specific answer to that, Mike. I can find it out for you, but I do know from previous lives that there were sort of time bounds of where apprentices could start and work their shifts, etc. I don't know if this has been sort of rolled into the example that you're giving, but we can certainly find that out for you more specifically. I do recall something around starting and finishing times had to be within certain parameters. I do recall that. I don't know, Erin, whether there's anything you want to add around that.
I've just seen in the notes that Tommy says he's going to pick up on it, so I don't want to steal your thunder, Tommy, but as far as I'm aware, in terms of age, there's no age limit on apprenticeships. It's for 16 and over, so I don't see how an age would have an impact on that, but myself, I'm not sure of the legalities around night shift working, and I think Tommy is probably going to answer that better than me.
All right, thanks, Erin. I think we can take that one offline, Tommy, probably.
Yeah, happy to take that offline, Mick. I'll be more than happy to pick up with you out with this meeting.
Thanks, guys. I think now we've overran, sadly. Poor chairing from me, I'm afraid. I think it's been a really worthwhile session for us, hopefully. The call to action around this for our friends and colleagues in the teaching arena is, if there's any other support or help that you need around this, any other communication we can make, any other events we can attend to get that message out there about the value of apprenticeships, we're more than happy to do that. I'd like to thank everybody that's spent the hour and a bit with us this afternoon. I think the conversation's been rich and the contributions have been extremely valuable. I appreciate everybody taking the time to do that for us today. So at that, I will thank everybody and I will close the webinar. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks all.